are talking Mr. Creep, and this is written and directed by Isaac Rodriguez. Now, Rodriguez seems to be a little bit of a prolific found footage filmmaker, and I've actually reviewed a couple of his previous efforts quite recently. He directed both The Last Radio Call and A Town Full of Ghosts. I'll have to be honest with you, those movies I found kind of below average. So how does this one fare? What's Mr. Creep all about? It focuses on 4 college students who decide they're going to do a documentary on this kind of serial killer who is being covered up. He's apparently killed around 200 people, but it was all kind of hushed up by the authorities and things like this. And this kind of team of friends want to kind of uncover the truth and expose the kind of the cover up and things like this. Now, this serial killer had been put to death previously, but maybe he is sticking around in some other ways as our team of documentary filmmakers do their kind of investigation. They uncover that there may well still be some type of afterlife kicking in this killer. What will happen? You'll have to watch the movie and find out. So let's talk about what I think worked in this movie. So this being the 3rd movie that I've reviewed from Rodriguez, I have to say this does feel like a more assured movie. It has a little bit more of a stylistic kind of touch to it, and there are some genuinely kind of creepy moments. We have this antagonist, a serial killer called Joe, and he is basically a guy who dresses up in kind of clown makeup, and it's kind of been burnt into his kind of face. So he certainly gives off the kind of the Joker vibes in kind of Arkham Asylum and things like this. And although this is a kind of found footage movie, it's interspersed with kind of police footage and things like that to give you kind of more context and stuff. And the character of this serial killer, of this Joe, I have to say, the sequences where we see him, it seems kind of quite spooky, I have to say. And this movie does have some genuinely kind of creepy moments. Rodriguez has obviously cut his teeth somewhat making kind of found footage movies, and you can see the kind of the escalation in his kind of confidence behind the camera making these movies. The last 2 I have to say that I've seen weren't particularly awful, but they certainly weren't particularly good either, and I would say they were below average. But I have to say this is certainly the most scary out of the kind of the 3 movies that I've seen of his, with some fantastic jump scare kind of moments here and an interesting kind of premise to it. The idea of this kind of hushed up serial killer who is really kind of only hinted at his kind of motivations behind what he's kind of doing and things like that. I think makes it kind of somewhat of an intriguing mystery, and there is some great kind of like moments here that really feel like there's this supernatural entity who has some quite impressive powers, shall we say, and you never quite know what he's kind of, or what this kind of force is kind of capable of, and it really makes you kind of go on the back foot in regards to, you don't quite know how he's going to be able to affect these 4 kind of college students and things like that. So that was all kind of done quite well. The atmosphere as well, I think was quite done. It's quite well filmed for a found footage movie. Maybe a little bit overly kind of like produced. We'll come on to that again. Now, in the last radio broadcast, I think it was called, it seemed to me that was kind of quite influenced by Grave Encounters. But it does feel like this kind of like somewhat kind of well put together movie in regards to a fairly good kind of production values. There's some good locations. There's actually quite a variety in locations, from a kind of an old abandoned kind of police station to kind of out in the kind of the woods to just kind of suburban areas and things like that. So we do get a good variety in our kind of in our different kind of locations, and a few different kind of elements that are in play here, from archive footage from serial killers to creepy dolls to kind of supernatural kind of forces and things like that. So in actual fact, I think it works as an effective horror movie with certainly some good horror movie elements. However, let's talk about what I think doesn't work. I think this movie kind of cheats on the aspect of a found footage movie. In a number of ways. For a start, we have kind of like music over the kind of the sort of found footage sequences and things, which never really kind of makes sense if you're kind of meant to be watching lost footage, so to speak. It kind of almost feels like, you know, it's added to be more cinematic, which does work, but it does take away from the aesthetic of a found footage. Add to the fact that we see kind of footage interacted with the police footage, or when they're watching something on a television, it'll actually kind of like switch to that kind of feed and things like that. Again, which kind of takes away from the real kind of found footage vibe to it. And the other thing with that as well, we have 4 characters, and one of them is the kind of the camera guy who really doesn't say anything. And I'm thinking if he was part of this group, surely he would voice a little bit more in regards to kind of the conversation and stuff. He just kind of holds the camera, says like 1 or 2 lines here or there, but the rest of the conversation is purely through the other 3 characters. This other guy there is purely there to serve as a you know, as the camera, the floating camera. And then, again, it's one of these found footage movies you're thinking, why is this guy filming? Things like that. So that's the actual kind of the problems with the actual found footage aesthetic. The other issue I had with it is on a kind of a story level. There's things here that are just made to push the plot in a particular direction. This happens a few times within the movie, but I will give you one to kind of give you an example. So there's a sequence where our group of college kids are talking to another character, and this other character comes at them with a knife, and there's a struggle, and this other character is stabbed and seemingly kind of killed, and our kind of group of college kids, oh my god, what are we going to do? Let's get out of here. Let's kind of like we don't want to be kind of pinned to this. I think you've literally just filmed this person attacking you. You literally have undeniable evidence this was kind of like you know, self-defense. Why aren't you talking to the police? So there's things like that are just kind of seemingly kind of ignored. There's typical moments where someone kind of runs off their own in the kind of like the darkness, and getting the group split up and things like that. So there are some like very kind of like obvious elements here that are just made to kind of push the narrative one way or another, and these decisions that are made that don't really kind of seem logical in the movie. Now, if you can ignore those facts, I do think there is a quite entertaining kind of scary horror movie here, but it doesn't really make a lot of sense, to be honest. So it's one of these films where if you can somewhat kind of switch off your brain, you'll find an entertaining movie, but narratively it's a little bit of a mess. So I'll give it a 6 out of 10. I do think it's an effective horror movie, and it does have some pretty good scares in it, and some pretty good visuals, and a good atmosphere. Just story-wise, it's a little bit lacking, and I think it makes some cheats with the actual found footage kind of method here. 6 out of 10, have you seen it? What did you think of it? Leave me a comment, and I shall look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.